Okay, we are now recording. So Sharon, you have your quorum and you're ready to start whenever you want to.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Weston Board of Education Policy Committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, November 12th, and we have our quorum. We're ready to go. I can't remember, and I cannot pull up my agenda right now, but I don't think we do the Pledge of Allegiance on this one, do we?
No, we do not. You can start with the approval of the minutes from the October 1st meeting.
All right, that's great. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at the minutes from last month's meeting? Any thoughts, changes? No. Can I have a motion to approve last month's minutes from the meetings?
Motion to approve.
All right, second.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, excellent. From there, I believe we go to, I'm going off of memory here.
You are on graduation requirements.
Yes, graduation requirements. Perfect.
I'll lead you through.
Thank you. Who's taking, Tina, are you taking this one?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Great.
good morning, everyone. How are you doing?
Good morning.
Good to see you all again. I feel like it's only been a couple hours. So this past fall, we were visited by Shipman and Goodwin, and as we always are every year, and they update a bunch of different laws for public schools. One of which was the high school graduation requirements. And at that time, they talked about the updates to the mastery-based diploma assessment, the requirement for personal finance management and financial literacy, the community service parts, as well as physical education. So that just led me to kind of review our current policy and see how that correlates to what some of these updated laws state. So as a result, I saw that we did not currently have notation for the requirement of 0.5 personal finance course. So that has since been added and included. I also met with Megan Canetta to go through some of this as well around our current practices regarding curriculum revision for how students earn those credits. So if you look on the second page, maybe it's the second page of the regulations, there's a couple additional statements regarding an isolated writing portfolio. This year, writing portfolios are part of the English classes across 9 through 12. It's also a component of the pursuit of the graduate when every student actually completes that portion of the graduate, which is part of our mastery-based diploma. And the school-based goals this year is around developing common rubrics around writing and writing experiences. So while that statement doesn't necessarily correlate to a specific number within the graduation requirement, it's embedded within the numbers in the English and within the portrait of the graduate. So that needs to be adjusted. And then also, there was some just redundant information or statements. Every student must successfully complete the Weston High School portrait of the graduate. That's part of the numbers in the total calculations that we've already identified. I also added in there, and this is a question, I guess, for the whole committee, and especially Lisa, with the new legal updates, requirements, there was a I think we brought this up last time. There was a community service statement in Public Act number 24 to 45, talking about that it's an option or that Board of Eds may offer a 1/2 credit community service towards graduation. Forgive me, I forgot where we landed on that and whether or not we wanted to include it or if it was a necessary piece of the updated language in the graduation requirements. I put it in there as an option in case it's needed, just because that's what the law states, but I'm not sure if that's even necessary.
So hold on, the law actually states that we have to have that in there, that we have credit?
Yeah, so what Jessica gave us, it says community service. Under existing law, Board of Eds may offer 1/2 credit in community service, which if satisfactorily completed under certain conditions, qualifies for high school graduation credit.
Right.
That's what it says.
Now, Tina, before we never had that, correct? Because I thought when we discussed this before, we hadn't had the requirement, but if we were to adopt it, we would have to adopt it according to the law, which included
nonpartisan public. Or,
activities. Like we'd have to adopt it wholesale if we adopted it.
It
But
says
our
partisan
stand-
political activities may now qualify as community service. In the end,
Right.
the school district, the Board of Education, has the right to determine if a community service credit can be awarded. We currently don't have anything listed under that though right now. So I guess I lean on Lisa for this one.
yeah, I was going to say, Lisa, what are your thoughts on this?
No,
No.
this is what I would do. And I'm thinking of, well, first of all, so many of our kids do service. You know, we were talking about it yesterday. Service is a form of patriotism. Let's say where this is helpful, there's two things.
Mhm.
First of all, I don't want to say keeping track. If you have everyone, like, you know, sometimes in private schools they say you have to do this. Then
Yep.
somebody has to keep track of it. Somebody has to validate it. Is it happening? Is it worthwhile? All that. There's a lot of there could be a lot of bureaucracy around this. And I just don't know in this community if we need to even go down that route, because our kids are really great and they do a lot of service. Now, that being said, where I could see it come in handy on a practical note, let's say you have someone, they are struggling for credits,
Right.
struggling, okay, for credits. How do we get them to graduate? What I would recommend in this case is not this, but I would recommend, like, what would be meaningful if we needed to offer, if there was a way that they could do a community service project and get credit for it. To me, it wouldn't be where I don't like it. It's hours of community related activities. It's not about hours. It's about an experience and reflecting and growing from it. So, for example, you could do an independent study. And under the guise of independent study, which we have in the credits, you could do an independent study and as a component of that do service, but have to do a little bit more than that and get credit for it. When we go to those, and maybe some of you guys experienced it, when we go to the Portrait of a Graduate, there have been kids that have chosen talking about, you know, Builders Beyond Borders is a big passion of mine. I went on the trip for years with the kids, and they would talk about it in their Portrait of a Graduate and what it meant to them. It wasn't about hours. It was about reflecting and engaging in critical thinking and analysis and what it meant. And where I struggle with these kinds of things and putting them in is it's about, well, then how many hours? Well, 20 hours. Well, 15 hours. Well, you get to 38. Well, can it be 38 individually, or if you go for a week? And it just seems that here and now, from my point of view, in the past and moving into the future, I don't think I don't believe we don't need this. And I think there are other avenues to get at validating some kind of a project, community service project through independent study, as well as you'll see it appear in the Portrait of a Graduate. Maybe I'm saying too much. That's kind of what I would recommend.
Well, one of the competencies in the Portrait of the Graduate is cares for others, which is where I would see this as encompassing of potentially community service. However, everyone has to complete the Portrait of the Graduate, which is a full credit. This would be something above and beyond that, which would be no more than a 0.5 worth of a credit. So maybe that's for another, maybe it goes beyond the 25. No, that wouldn't even make sense to go beyond the 25.
There's something else that I think we need to consider.
Yeah.
We are a rigorous, comprehensive high school.
Yeah.
And people choose, you know, last time I did the statistic, 30% of the senior class took 2 math courses, for example. They'll double up in science. They will always take beyond what they want. And I guess I just feel like, and I was talking this with the little kids yesterday. I remember in kindergarten when they brought to the food pantry, the field trip, they bring their cans, they put them in. We have instilled in them caring for others, K-12. And to me, it just kind of, I don't know, it sort of misses the mark by having to put it in as do this many hours and you get a half credit. I'm not as comfortable with that. I want them to do something really meaningful with their time in high school. Not that it's not meaningful. It's already embedded in so many things that they do starting in 12 that I don't think it's necessary.
Lisa, I have a quick question for you, though. You mentioned something about having some sort of an independent study opportunity for students, especially those who are lacking in credits. Where is that independent study component in this document.
I believe it's an elective, correct?
So it can be part of their, what is it, a 3 credits? Elective, any area, 2.5 credits instead of 3. So if we're going to move it from 3 to 2.5, but yet we're not going to, oh no, I guess the personal finance takes that other half
Yeah.
credit. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. No, I think this is, I see this more as some flexibility for the Board of Ed and the high school to have in place in case it is needed, but I'm not sure how it's worded. To Lisa's point, whether it's an option. Yeah, I know. Under certain conditions, it says, it's only up to a 0.5 credit, satisfactorily completing under certain conditions. It's a may, it's not a must.
I mean, I haven't talked in depth with Megan about this, but you could even put under the independent study description, and let me pull it up, a course of study. That theme of caring for others and community service could be incorporated in that as a possible option.
Right, but this would be above and beyond that 1.0 graduation credit. This would be an additional 0.5 if needed, not integrated within the portion of a graduate. So it'd have to be something above and beyond that.
No, I'm talking about independent study.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
If you put a description. Listen, I think ultimately it's up to the board. I would not recommend putting it in, but it's up to you.
I mean, what about if we were to, instead of putting it in as a separate line item, have it as, I guess, no, we don't necessarily want to put it in as the independent study because then that constricts what we're able to do as far as independent study is concerned.
No, not if it's listed as an option. I'm checking how they list it right now.
So maybe we just slide it up into, as part of the definition of an independent study, what sort of things can be incorporated in independent study. Maybe we just put it there. I'm not sure what the benefit is of having it separate, pros and cons of having it separate. That's what I'm looking for.
There's a whole thing. WHS Independent Study Program is listed under the academics at the high school. It's open to all students who have a desire. They can earn academic credit. It goes through what it is. Projects are graded for standard or honors credit. You don't get a letter grade though, just like you wouldn't here. I mean, there's a whole process. You have to write a reflective journal. You have to get approval for a project that you have to produce. You have to describe what you're going to do. You have to have a calendar. You have to have an advisor. It's to me, that's more robust than just somebody checking off or here, sign this paper. I did 5 hours this week. I mean.
All right.
Yeah,
That's
like that.
fine then. If we can.
We can embed it within the independent study.
If you go under departments, so if you go under Weston High School academics, so we can certainly talk to the high school. We're actually going to see them a little bit later.
Yep.
So I suppose, okay, so if that's the case, then we need to take this out. If it's going to be incorporated into the independent study thing, are we in agreement on potentially taking it out and then?
I don't know if it's something that we've discussed it, bring it to the board for the discussion and the understanding. Not to say that you guys, I don't know if the three of you can just say, yeah, we're going to get rid of it. I think it has to, you know what I mean? I think that I think the board needs to come to a consensus around it is what I would recommend. I don't want other people not having heard this part of the conversation.
All right, so then let's move it forward to a first read.
Mm-hmm.
And when we say that, how would you like me to edit it? Just embed it within the independent study piece, or
No,
just
I would leave it alone, and
leave it alone?
I think leave it alone, and we have to put a note on it about maybe discussing it and providing some backup material. And I think we have to talk to the high school about it a little bit.
Okay.
I mean,
All right.
the reality is that if this policy comes back next month to this committee, it's not the end of the world, right? We have time to do this.
Right.
There's no rush where it has to go to, has to be approved by January. So I think I would recommend we delve into it a little bit more under that thing, because, this is my opinion, my recommendation, and yet I want to make sure that there's consensus around it. And I don't think I'm missing anything, but.
Okay.
Right.
Let's go.
Okay.
So I'm clear for the notes. We're going to bring this to the board for the first read, and at the board meeting on the 18th, you're going to discuss the issue about community service, and then we can take it from there.
Or do we bring it back with a little bit more detail about the flexibility of putting it under independent study? I think the high school has to weigh in on that.
Do we bring it back to the policy committee or do we bring it back? I'm confused. Do you not want to go to first read? Would you rather get more information before we even take it to first read?
I guess I would defer to you guys.
I mean, yeah.
I'm fine. We're fine with either way.
Steve, Michael, any thoughts on that?
Look, we've just talked about this for almost 20 minutes, so the whole board conversation about the consensus.
What's that? You cut out.
We've just talked about this for 20 minutes, so it's not something that we can just decide without having the whole board having the conversation.
Okay.
I think let's move it to the first read. I'm looking at the independent study description in the program of studies. It says right here, it is the desire to, as well as enrichment opportunities, afford students an opportunity to earn credit for independent work. I believe it fits under there, but I think that Megan can certainly speak to that and Tina at the meeting, but let's just move it forward then.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Next up is your video monitoring.
Yep. Next up. All right. So I think, Lisa, are you doing this?
Yes, I'm doing this. Dr. Engel, you're welcome to stay or you're welcome to leave.
I have to jump back onto the right to read stuff. So
Yeah, I know
I'm gonna
you've been,
go
that's
other
why
side.
I'm offering you.
So, I appreciate it.
Because I know you're double booked.
Okay.
So the use of video monitoring and recording, and I may call on Mr. DeVito to chime in here a little bit. Basically, what we needed to do was we needed to look at and update this policy to align with specifically where it talks about law enforcement, SROs, to align with our MOU of understanding, which provides, that we had approved recently and signed off, and it talks about all of those things with regard to video, how we, record students in the building and staff in the building. So, the recommendation here is at first that I'm on the first page. It talks about only video coverage and not audio, which is pretty much, a lot of this is pretty much our practice. We just kind of need to formalize it. So that's the first part, that we need to, only use recordings that are, there's no sound. Then if you look at the regulations, it goes through all of the different regulations about which that we need to follow. If you look at the first paragraph, it talks about we use video to assist in discipline, things like that, and everything else. The number one on there talks about notification of video surveillance rules. And I believe, Mr. DeVito, this kind of will require us to tweak something that we currently do. Is that correct?
That is correct. We'll have to tweak part of our annual notification process to parents and students.
Can you kind of explain, put a little bit more, to paint
Yeah.
us a little bit more of a picture on that? And what does that mean?
Yeah, so basically, every year we send out annual permissions, asking people to agree to things like posting their pictures in print, updating their demographics information. We're going to need to add this, basically saying that they acknowledge that their students, their children may be recorded while they are on school grounds. And then the rest of the policy explicitly explains why they are being recorded. So it would just be a simple acknowledgement that they are going to, that we have a camera system in district.
And what happens if a parent says no?
So we're going to be working with that, but it wouldn't be a yes or no question. It would be an acknowledgement. So it would be different than what we currently ask, right? So families right now, for certain questions such as posting pictures online, they have the ability to say, no, we don't want that. And then we have a list. For something like this, it would just be, we acknowledge that we're being notified that our children will be getting recorded as part of our camera system.
So, but just play this out. Some parent says, I don't want that. They come back and say, no, I don't want that.
It's in locus parentis. It's not a choice. The only choice they have is they can say, I don't want my child posted on Instagram. I don't want a picture used on my child on a budget book. These are our video, we can show them where the camera is. Cameras are. We would work with the parents to help them understand the safety and security aspect of all of this.
And one of the other things is
You can't opt out.
this is for internal use. These cameras are used for internal use only. The other questions are for posting pictures in print online outside of school district business.
This policy, I think, actually provides more guardrails and protections around this, even though, as I said, we've pretty much been doing this. It talks about how they're stored. It talks about, you have people say, I want to come in and see a video of my child's disciplinary incident. We've had that, right? And what are the guardrails that are put up? You have to come in. You have to be with someone to watch it. You have to, at times, Dan, you've had to do certain things with videos to protect student privacy, correct?
Yes, I have.
So all of that is really important. And goes through the whole thing. You have to keep a log of who is seeing the video. There's, I think, a lot of safeguards, but the bottom line is it's really done for safety purposes.
Okay.
And I don't know if anyone has actually really thought, or the parents have thought. I think that they've seen cameras, and their kids are being recorded every day live. And where are these cameras? Where are this monitoring screens? We have them in the front of, in the main office. Finance and operations has one. One of the first things I did as superintendent was there's one right over Jody's desk. There's one in Tina's office. We have to be able to see of the front doors of the schools. We have access on all of our computers to get in and see what is going on. I can't tell you how many times I've walked by and looked and said, who is that going in there? And usually it's fine, but it's a kind of an underlying safety precaution that we must have. And so this policy sort of codifies a lot of the practice that we do, how they see it, what are the timelines, the video is property of the district, student records, staff records. We've had situations in HR where, we've had to go to the videotape with people. In the course of looking into a particular incident, and look what we've found out or what we've seen. And then I think the big thing to look at is this: if you look at the whole section H on law enforcement, it provides some very, it provides the guidelines for the Weston Police Department. The Weston Police Department the dispatch has access to both outdoor and indoor cameras. However, the indoor cameras are only activated if an alarm goes off, if they know that something's going on in the school. Nobody is sitting there constantly looking at these cameras, just watching them. However, God forbid there is a crisis, they need to be able to, and they can, look at it instantaneously, pinpoint what's going on as an aid of assistance. The prior policy here didn't have that. So we have to get it aligned with our practice. Any questions on this? And with the MOU, because it aligns also at the end, they talk about the SRO, it aligns with the what's in the SRO MOU.
Two quick questions for me, Lisa. The first one is going back to the audio.
Yeah.
The topic of the audio. I understand why we wouldn't feel the need for audio. On school buses, though, in the note here, it says if the board allows audio recordings on school buses, that can be addressed in a separate policy. I believe we do. Is that correct? We do have audio or allow audio on the buses. Is there something else then that needs to be addressed in our policy? Maybe not here, maybe another document that we need to update?
Phil?
I would have to check on that, but we do allow audio on the buses.
We do. And I knew, when I went through, I said, darn, I forgot to check. And before I have it pulled up here, and I still haven't gotten to that part. We do allow audio. There was a disciplinary incident where the audio actually was very important. So my recommendation here is to bring this as a first read. And in the meanwhile, we're we have to double check on that specific policy under transportation. I've been going through it, looking at it to see, and then to get Shipman's best thought on how to make sure that all aligns together.
Yeah, just want to make sure we're covered there.
Yep.
And then the second question is just around, I think, just security and privacy. Who has access? How limited are the number of people who have access to video, for example? Is it, I mean, we talk about administration, but is it a specified, number of people, is it general administration? Like, how widespread is the access vis-a-vis administration?
Lisa, you want me to take that? Sure. So it's the building principals and assistant principals have access to it. The security guards, the SRO, and some folks at central office, such as myself, Lisa, Phil, people like Jody have access to the camera system here at central office. So all of the assistants at central office have access to just the central office and the annex cameras. But at the building level, it really just comes down to the principals, the assistant principals, and key personnel administrators at central office.
Okay, so there is a defined and limited list there.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yes. And we keep on top of that list for good reason. So if anybody leaves the district, that's part of their access that gets cut off. Or even if they change positions. So if they go from an admin to a teacher, they lose access to the camera system.
Right, and to that point, we also have limited access at PD.
Yes.
Do we need to define that within the administration? Should that be a part of this policy, defining who has access to it? Or is that just too much?
I think it might be getting too into the weeds. I think it's important, though, to clarify with the board, like Director of Security has access. That's, key. He's part of the administration. I found the policy 5131.2, video and audio recording on school buses. I'm printing it out. We will compare it. Darn, I should have found it before the meeting, but it looks very similar. And if need be, we will bring it to the next meeting to edit it. But I think it's okay.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments? Are we ready to move this forward for first read? All right.
Good.
Let's do it. So I think next up we have board budget procedures and line item transfers. And I'm assuming, Mr. Cross, this is why you have graced us with your presence today. So if you want to take it away, please do.
Lisa, are you gonna just broadly speak about this, or do you want me to jump
I'll
in?
just say a few comments broadly. So this again is the recommendation from Shipman. Phil understands a lot of the details a lot more than me, so I will turn it over to him. But I do believe it involves the non-lapsing account. Correct, Phil?
Yeah, I think the main change to this is the addition of the unexpended fund with that change in the policy regarding the non-lapsing account. That's on page 3. What I do need to clarify, Lisa, is language as it relates to quarterly reporting. So in our current language, it mentions that we need to have at minimum, so the word at minimum, quarterly meetings. This new policy does not, it just mentioned a quarterly budget report. So I think it's important that we discuss as to whether or not we want to make that shift to quarterly meetings, or do we want to maintain having monthly meetings? If we want to continue to have monthly meetings, I think it's important that we do add or we keep the language that says at minimum.
Can you reference the page number? I'm sorry, Phil. Are you on page 2?
So on page 2, second paragraph, about halfway through.
Okay.
Right. And then when you compare that to the old policy, how I have it printed, policy 3150, 2 paragraphs from the end, about halfway through, at a minimum.
2 paragraphs from the end. The end where? I'm sorry.
On the old policy.
Can you
So the on the old policy 3150, the paragraph starting with the superintendent.
And, or his.
It's
or
page
her-
1, second paragraph from the bottom.
Okay, got it, yeah. At a minimum, oh, okay. So what, Phil, let's cut to the chase. What do you want it to read? I think I'm, the new one, I'm confused.
That's okay. I think we need to, if we want to continue to have monthly meetings, I think we need to keep at minimum.
At minimum. Okay, Jody, at a minimum, okay, sorry, I think.
That's
my
okay.
brain's a little slow today. So you want us to add in at a minimum?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Okay,
And
I
then,
will make that change.
and also as it relates to the dates, the periods
Yeah, yeah.
covered, I think we need to keep the periods covered as was outlined in the previous policy. Because for the final quarter, April through May, we don't tend to typically we report on that in September. And also for the third quarter, January through March, we report on that in April.
oh, okay. I got it.
Yep. And then the final edit that I would recommend, where it mentions on page 3, in the second sentence, where it says shall notify the fiscal authority.
Well, you're going a little bit fast here. Page 3.
I'm sorry.
Where?
New policy, page
Oh,
3.
okay, got it. Yeah.
Right. So I think the fiscal authority in town is a board of finance. But by town charter, any special appropriation needs to be firstly approved by the Board of Selectmen. So we should keep the old language.
Oh, I don't
And the
have
old
page
language-
3. Okay, keep old language, got it?
Old language can be found on page 2, third paragraph down, where sentence started with transfer made in such instances. And a written explanation of such transfer shall be provided to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
So I think if we want to flip it, we should probably go Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance, because the first step is always Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
Other than that, I'm not quite sure if there needs to be a discussion at this meeting regarding unexpended funds. I know we had considered setting up some guardrails regarding the non-lapsing account, but the policy itself as written doesn't address that.
No, that's a much broader conversation.
So if I can summarize, we're going to make those tweaks that Phil said. I think the procedural techniques of things that we've been doing that are working. And now we're at a point where we have to make a decision if we codify the unexpended, the board's right to establish a non-lapsing account on its own in this policy. So
Right.
how do you want to proceed with that?
Well, that's a longer conversation for the board.
But didn't the state change their policies that basically that gave the boards the right to create the non-lapsing accounts?
Yeah.
So do we have to have that in a policy, or is that just the state has given us the right to do that if we so choose? And I think that this policy outlines the non-lapsing accounts and what percentage can go into it, et cetera. Am I missing something here?
Yeah, I'm not quite certain what the recommendation was from Shipman Lisa regarding this. If she
The
recommended,
recommendation was this, to put it in.
Okay.
That was the recommendation. And that's why it came up, they'll send us things like, these are the policies that need to be revised. This one needs to be revised because now boards of education have this right. Now, politically, culturally in the town, how that is accomplished, I leave in your hands. We had to start by at least bringing it to you.
Okay.
Well, we can put in the conversation the board has to have.
Steve, you're breaking up.
Yeah, I can't hear you. Can't understand you.
We can put it in the document, but it's a broader conversation for the full board.
As to whether or not to have non-lapsing accounts, or what's the broader conversation?
Whether or not we want to adopt the the approved state regulation. I mean, we could say, no, we're not going to do that. I think there's a general consensus that we are going to do it, but I think we have to have a final conversation on it amongst the board.
Phil, have you engaged with the Board of Finance on this yet?
We will be engaged with the board on this coming Thursday, on the 14th.
Yeah, to me, that's the big thing. I think it's more than a courtesy to the Board of Finance to say, like, look, this is a policy, the board will be discussing it. We have this right.
Does this policy in particular codify then us being able to, I mean, I guess it does. It codifies us being able to start a non-lapsing account. So rather than I don't think that this is so timely that we have to send this one for first read right now. Why don't we wait until Phil has a conversation with the Board of Finance? And then we can discuss it based upon how that conversation goes. Does that sound like something that, in the name of keeping peace locally, so the board is interested in, or how do you guys want to proceed?
I agree with you, Sharon. Let's just see what they say on Thursday. It may be a moot point.
Okay. I hope it is.
Okay, so why don't, Phil, you have your meeting on Thursday?
Correct.
So why don't we wait till after that meeting and then
Yeah.
see where if you think that it should be moved forward? Because I want to make sure that the full board knows about this. I mean,
That's
are
why
we
I'm
confident
saying,
the full board knows that this law was changed and that I'm not clear that they know about it and understand that.
No, this is not the first we
we
Okay.
discussed it last spring that this had
Okay,
come
I
down.
just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah, we discussed it, but I just think that, we can either, Phil, based on your recommendation from your conversation and communication with the Board of Finance, we can send it for a first read on Monday, or I think that might be a little premature. Why don't we, bring it back to policy next month, and either it's just, we go for a first read or not. I don't think it's I don't think time is something that's going to hurt this policy in particular.
Okay, sounds fine. We'll make the other changes, Jody. In the meantime, we'll bring it back to you and Phil will report about
Yes.
the Board of Finance conversation at the next meeting.
Correct.
Awesome.
Okay,
Got it.
Excellent. Thanks, Phil.
thanks, Phil. I think
Thanks,
there's,
guys. Have a good day.
You too.
farewell, Phil. I'll see you later.
All right, then. See you in a few minutes.
Okay, where are we now?
We're on non-discrimination.
So remember we talked about that we did the non-discrimination for students and for staff. There's also another one under the community that we found that needed to be updated. And so it basically is along the same thread to align all of our policies to read the same. So if you look, through it, a great deal of it is similar to the other one. It just involves community.
Just again, Lisa, on this, I think this was adopted sort of in response to, I think, the state adopting the federal revision, which I'm assuming now is going to be revised the other way federally.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting point, Mr. Guido.
So it is interesting in that. So not something I think we can answer here, but I assume if the feds sort of revise this and go back to the original Title IX description, sort of what does the state do? Because then, as I understand it, we're order takers here, right? There's not much we can do. We're just following what the state is providing to us. So we'll have to see what happens there. I just want to make sure we're nimble enough. I don't want to be spun like a yo-yo here back and forth. My question here is, again, I guess some of the uneasiness around just the complainant, the procedure in terms of, okay, there's the investigator, and then the investigator also can make a judgment. I know that you wanted language in there that allows that to happen, although the preference, let's say, of the district would be to continue this, let's say, committee-based judgment.
Team-based, yeah.
Team-based judgment. Does
yeah.
does the language in this still allow that to? I mean, of course,
Yeah.
look, I would prefer, and I think Steve brought this up last time as well, that there's obviously an opportunity here, for bias. I just want to make sure that we're leaning into the, let's say, team-based approach on making a judgment, as opposed to having one person be the investigator and then the person who's making the judgment. So I didn't see language in here that I guess it gives you maximum flexibility, but I don't know if there's a way that we can say that the preference is for X, even though we allow for Y. Is that, do you understand what I'm saying? The preference is for a team-based, even though we allow for, let's say, this other interpretation that I think is probably less than optimal.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the legal position was to give us as much flexibility as possible. I can tell you wholeheartedly that a superintendent sitting in that kind of a role would never rely on one person to do any of this. There was an incident that we recently had to do that involved discrimination with that. It was kind of public in town, and it was, everyone was involved. I even sat down and met with the parents. But the investigation took place. There were 3 administrators involved in that investigation. There were 4 administrators sitting around the table when they were talking about the decision. They called me on the phone. I reviewed things. Like, it's just, there's such high stakes with this. And I get what you're saying, kind of the uncomfortability of why are they wording it that way? I'm not a lawyer. I'm an educator, and I know that any educator in these positions, especially here in this district, we have been trained not to operate alone. It cannot happen, especially in a non-discrimination policy. It can't.
Yeah, I'm just guarding against the fact, Lisa, that maybe even though let's say I would trust you, I don't know who comes in afterwards. Let's say years down the road, and let's say has a different stance on it. So is there an ability for us? I know we can't necessarily change it, but is there ability for us to state our preference here, even though the policy, I guess, gives us flexibility, right? I mean, allowing for the flexibility of, let's say, the one person, even though that's not optimal.
I'm taking notes, Michael.
Yeah.
Can we stay up?
And that's a global comment around all this non-discrimination.
Yeah, I understand. Believe me, I understand.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying, what happens in the future. I just can tell you that nobody here, while I'm sitting in this chair, would ever go rogue and make a decision on their own.
I'd love for you to live to 150, Lisa.
But to your point, I've lived through situations. I've been in administration almost 25 years. It's I will let me approach Jessica again to get some more clarity on it, and if it means bringing her back to next month's policy meeting, just so people are assured.
And one last question for you, Lisa. I'll shut up. But could you also ask Jessica, if she doesn't attend? Could you also ask Jessica what happens if the federal? I was thinking of that.
I was thinking it'd be interesting when you say this. Great minds think alike. I was thinking, gee, it might be interesting to bring her to one of these policy committees to see what she's hearing about, because everyone is thinking about this transition
right.
of power and what the Department of Education is going to look like and what the State Department of Education and everything else. And will the rights end up, we don't get all that much except some legislation from the federal government. This community doesn't benefit a lot from federal funding, but what does that mean in the overall? So yeah, maybe she'll have some insight on that.
Thanks, Lisa.
Okay. Oh, can we move on to the next one? Sharon, are you good?
So am I not bringing this forward for a first read? Are we
No.
going to hold off on this?
No, hold off.
Okay.
bring it back, please. Okay, I'm looking for, oh, it's over here.
I did, so hold on, are we going to go to the second discrimination policy or are we going to go to the MOU? Because
I thought
There
we were
wasn't a
doing
second
the
one. It was a policy and
non-discrimination
regulation.
policy regulation, I have a question. There was one area, I've been trying to find it on the document. It said something, it was kind of obscure. It said something along the lines of, it had to do with community involvement and when it would open to the community. And it specifically mentioned the Boy Scouts. And I didn't mark where it was.
Boy Scouts.
Or I saw it. Boy Scouts. I saw that and I was like, Boy Scouts? Why specifically are we talking about bringing the Boy Scouts in on something? And I've been kind of combing through it during this discussion to see if I can find it, and I'm not having any luck. But if we're coming back for a second read, I'll go through it again and I'll find it and mark it down. But it was just interesting that it was in there. I don't know if anybody else saw that.
No, but I'll go back and hunt for it now
Yeah.
that you said it.
I'll
Okay.
do a search in Word to see if I can find that later.
Yeah, if you could, because it just kind of
Yeah.
seemed odd to me. All right, never mind. I don't want to belabor this any longer. Especially since we're not going to a first read. All right, so the next item on the agenda is the MOU between the Board of Ed and Weston Youth Services. Lisa, is this you?
Yeah, forgive me, I can't find the copy of it in my hard copies. I don't
It-
think
It
I
should
have
be
it.
the very last page. Last few pages.
No, I don't. For whatever reason, I can't
Hold it
find
out.
the hard
Yeah,
copy.
when you do a control F here, it doesn't. It makes 3 references to it, Sharon, but it doesn't. I don't see it
Yeah.
here.
Oh, it's not on there? It's not posted on Board Book?
No, it's posted on Board Book.
He was doing a
He's talking-
search.
Yeah, he's doing the search and the discrimination portion.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's funny because it says that there are 3 references, Sharon, but it doesn't pull up any.
Yeah, all right. I saw.
Forgive me,
one
I have
specifically
to
this
go
morning.
find it digitally because I do not have a hard copy in my packet.
Okay.
Did you download it, Sharon?
I have it, but I'm working on an iPad right now, so I'm now in Board Book and I can't do the search in Board Book. So I have to try to get back to it and it keeps messing up my video feed every time I try to do that. I don't
Hold
know.
on a sec. Oh yeah, I do see it actually. Hold on, now I see it. Yeah, there are 3 references. So, what is this? Page 8, first paragraph, last sentence. The board shall provide equal
Yes.
access to the Boy Scouts. So,
Random.
oh, page 1, same thing. And then what is that? Page 7. So yeah,
Well, It seems so odd. I mean, it does say in other groups as required by law, but I don't know. Is there something in the state regulations that we have to loop the Boy Scouts in on this stuff? I'm not quite sure.
I don't know. We will get back to you on that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's random. Sorry to point it out.
Yeah,
but at the
no,
same
I'm glad
time,
you brought it up. I'm kind of embarrassed I didn't catch that. I don't know.
yeah.
that's all right. All right. It'd be interesting to see if maybe that's just wording that the state has pushed and Jessica, I don't know. All right. So we'll just run that past Jessica and find out.
Okay, so the next one, I have it here now. Memorandum of Understanding. This is between the Weston Board of Education and Weston Youth Services. This is a recommendation from both the Connecticut Association of Boards of Education, Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, and Shipman. And basically what it does here, and Sam Nestor's in the loop on this. I've met with Allison a couple of times on it. I know we're still waiting for, we got feedback from the town administrator. Cutting to the chase, the big question is who signs it from the town side? Isn't that the answer that we're waiting for, Jody? We want to make sure the appropriate person signs the MOU. But basically what it does is it involves the whole idea of when we, and again, it's kind of like codifying things we have in practice. And I think the reason that this has become an issue at the state level is probably because of communities that did not have it, did not have these practices. It has to do with privacy and security of information between the Weston Youth Services and the schools. We work very well together. They're right next door. go in and out of the offices, but it specifically specifies about, again, putting up different guardrails around the data and all of that, and the relationship and how the stuff is stored and everything else. So, I would recommend that we take our advice from these state agencies as well as Shipman. I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that we haven't. We're always very, very careful with this, as is Director Lisbon in this department. But this codifies it.
Okay. I didn't see anything here that I had any questions about. Did anyone else? Michael?
No,
No. Just one item of just detail and annoyance.
That's our job, Michael. That's our job.
Yeah, exactly. Page. It's our value add with some of these policies. Page one. I think this is a cut and paste. So I think B and C, maybe A and B. There is no A there. It looks like. Page one. It says whereas section 23 provides some relevant part. This is BC, Lisa. Maybe AB.
Jody, you see that?
Jody, do you see what Michael's referencing?
She may be back to sleep. It's really early where she is.
She's talking, but we can't hear
Muted.
anything she's saying.
Actually, I see what you're saying. It was a cut and paste for us, so I will adjust that.
I have to say, I just had a flashback moment, Michael. Who's leaving the town? Denise. Remember, she said she wanted to see Jody. She stopped by. Denise, gosh, what was her last name?
Denise Harvey.
Denise Harvey. Denise Harvey, when she moved here, and then she was great family, the Harveys, and her husband, terrific. And she had contacted Jody the other day because she wanted to come say goodbye to me. And I just had a flashback. She used to be the person on this committee that, besides, you both, you and she, it just reminded me of her, Michael, where she would notice these intricate things because she had read it so careful. She was a lawyer by trade.
no, not, he's a lawyer.
Yeah. So shout out to Denise Harvey if she's listening, and best of luck. She served on the board well. And look, Michael Guido is taking over for us this policy, finding all those little things that we haven't.
I do have to say it was wonderful having Melissa Walker on this committee too, because
remember that?
She was on everything. I almost felt bad. I'm like, gosh, I missed that comma. I'm really sorry.
No, but it's the devil is always in the, hey, you caught the Boy Scouts. The devil is in the details, and that's why it's so important that so many people read this. And so thanks for catching on that.
And then-
I see that. It must have been a line that might have been moved up and it shifted that automatically without us catching, but I just changed it.
And then one last one for you on this thread.
Sure.
Was it page 4? I thought at first we listed basically 1 to 9, and then these were all sub bullets. But they're not. Page 4, I guess it's 8. Why do we have a 10 in front of it?
Oh, it because we had I think they took something out. So the 10 is the cross through with the red line, which means it's going to be removed, and 8 is the next number.
Oh, the 10 is going to be removed. Okay.
Yes, the
Doesn't look
red
like
is what's
cross.
coming out and the change.
Oh,
Yes, you'll see the 8 next to the 10.
okay. All right, get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was confused.
When I accept all the changes, from the tracking, it'll automatically adjust that. So that'll be fine.
Okay, great.
Oh, okay. All right. So, may we move it forward, and at that point, hopefully, we'll have clarification. Who's signing this at the town level? So, anybody from the town, if you're watching, Sam, please help us determine who needs to sign it, because it is important,
Yeah, Allison said that Carl told her it was with their attorney, and the attorney was going to decide on their end who was going to sign the document. So that's what we're waiting on. And then Allison also requested a meeting, Lisa, with you, which I will set up so that you can go over all the parameters of this.
Yeah, we already had a meeting.
And I guess with the individuals that will be handling this on
Or
our
the person that signs it. Yeah, that's fine. I thought it was going to be Allison, but that's why we want to make sure we get it right.
All right. Excellent. Any new business moving forward, or are there any other policies that Lisa, that you've thought of, or
Yes.
Jody, that you're aware of that we want to move into next month's meeting?
Yes, I would like to do the civility policy. The civility policy has not been updated in about 6 years. It was first instituted in 2002 after a tragic event in this community. I think it, given some of the, I just want to review it and make sure that it captures everything that we talk about, especially in the area of electronic communications and things like that. Things have changed over the years, just in the last few years about that. And I think it's a good point to revisit it, look at it, make sure that it, is the spirit of the expectations we have in the town.
Okay.
Dealing with the school.
Always a good idea to stay on top of civility.
That one, and then we have I'll see if I can get Jessica there for the other thing. And we do have a list that I didn't get Mima to refresh with me before she went off to see her new grandson. But rest assured, there can be others I can send you for information only next week of other ones that I think we need to move forward on. A lot of them are just there's nothing major out there. It's just refreshing some of these policies. We have, I think Dan DeVito has finished our bot, hasn't he? Where we put this bot together where we put all the policies in. We're using AI, right? To be able to generate what are the oldest ones? What are the ones that, haven't been reviewed? And I think where he's almost done with putting all of the data in and fine tuning it. So it won't just be my trusted executive assistant Jody going through them with me saying, look at this policy, it hasn't been updated since
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. And that's also going to be helpful too, because, as Michael alluded to, with federal changes, there will be, I think, quite a few changes that we're going to have to deal with on a local level, so we can just easily find them and acclimate. So perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Awesome. All right. Well, if that's it, I think we are ready to end this lovely meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Steve. Second.
Second.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And the next meeting is scheduled for December. And Jody, do you have the date in front of you? I don't have it in front of me.
December 3rd.
December 3rd. All right. So we shall see everyone December 3rd, 9:00, bright and happy. And thank you, everyone.
Oh my goodness.
All right. See you guys on Monday.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.